Hi, and welcome to Machine Learning. This is CS 422-622, and I am Professor Emily Hand. Let's go over some logistics first. The syllabus. You're adults, I expect you to read it. There's not going to be any homework for this class. There will be weekly-ish quizzes, and we're going to use Piazza for discussion. So this is going to be different than most of your other classes where you'll probably use Web Campus. We're going to use an additional tool called Piazza, and the instructions for signing up for that are on the syllabus, and all correspondence for the class will go through Piazza instead of Web Campus. Your first lesson, pay attention. The last slide was all backwards. In class, I normally have sort of a curveball in the first couple slides to confuse students and see how many raise their hands. But normally I only get one or two meekly saying, I don't know, I don't really understand your slides. When really all of the students in the class should have their hand up because this experience is for you. I'm here to teach you about machine learning, so I need you to ask questions. This applies especially in an online learning framework. I need you to reach out to me via Piazza, to reach out to your fellow students via Piazza, and ask as many questions as you need, right? This is for you. You get out of this experience what you put into it. So I would recommend putting a lot in. Now, the real slide, the syllabus, I do expect you to read it because you're adults. Please let me know if you have any questions. There's no homework for this class. What does that mean? That means there's no graded homework assignments for this class. It doesn't mean there's no practice problems. I will post practice problems every week for the current material, along with solutions. I will also post old quizzes and old quiz solutions so that everyone has access to them and not just the people that got them from their friends last year or the year before. So you will have plenty of opportunity to practice all of the concepts that you learn in the class. We will have quizzes almost every week. There will be 12 total. You will get to drop 2, okay? There will be 2 midterms and 1 final. There will be about 4 projects. They'll all be in Python. And again, we'll use Piazza for discussions. So please sign up for Piazza by Wednesday, the 26th. And I expect everyone to use that for correspondence. So the reason that I use Piazza is because you can post anonymously. So I find that I get more participation when people can post anonymously. Okay, so you can post to the entire class, either with your name attached or anonymously. And you can send me private messages, which is basically the same as sending me an email. I don't like email because I get individual emails from students and then they don't get the benefit of learning from each other. Whereas when you post on Piazza, I get a message from Piazza and I know it's class related. Okay, so it's just easier for me to manage, and I think all the students get more out of it when we use Piazza rather than just email. Content, rather than discussions and private exchanges, will be on Web Campus. Okay, so any of the videos for class will be posted on Web Campus. All of the reading material, all of the old quizzes, all of the current quizzes, all of that stuff will be on Web Campus. And right now, there is a survey up on Web Campus underneath the first week module. Please review that and actually submit it. I would really appreciate that. I like to have a couple of surveys throughout the semester to see how I'm doing, see how you're doing, making sure that, my teaching style and your learning style are matching up and you're getting the most out of the class. So I change things according to the survey outputs. So please do respond to these because I take them very, very seriously. Quizzes are every week. And I wasn't kidding. We have one on Wednesday. So the quizzes are different this year than they will be every other year when we're in person. I like to give quizzes at the beginning of class. Can't really do that now because people have internet issues and all sorts of other problems. And so what I'm going to do to alleviate those kind of issues is allow you a 12-hour window to take the quiz. So the quiz will open at 6 a.m. on the day that it's due, and it will close at 6 p.m. on the day that it's due. Once you start the quiz, you only have 20 minutes to complete it. So make sure you have a stable internet connection and you're ready to sit down and do the quiz, and no one's going to come into your room and bother you or whatever. Okay, so make sure you have that 20 minutes to complete your quiz. Quizzes are not meant to be incredibly difficult. They're specifically just meant to keep you up to date on the material. By having a quiz every week, it ensures that you're watching the videos, doing the reading, doing the practice problems, and then putting that into practice on the quizzes. Okay, so this may seem like a really long and complicated question. This is towards the end of the semester, but the second paragraph actually says, if you understand the kernelized perceptron, you do not need the following equations. So I will always provide you with the equations that you need, unless I specifically tell you that you need to memorize something. That's very unlikely. I don't like memorization at all. And so I will always provide you with what you need, but basically this says, okay, if you really understand this concept, this is super simple and straightforward. If you don't, you can figure it out using the following equations, okay? And while I appreciate humor and drawings, I cannot give you credit for that, right? So I appreciate it, but I can't give you credit for it. So please try to show your work as much as possible, especially with these online quizzes. If you just give me the wrong answer, I have to give you 0 points. I love giving partial credit, so please give me the option to do that. A lot of people really struggle with the no homework concept, okay? So the point of no homework is not just to punish you, but I know that a lot of people use homework as just a buffer, right? Homework is about 10 to 20% in most classes, and it's sort of a giveaway, especially because a lot of times everyone has material from their friends from the past couple of years, and you just memorize things and copy things and things like that. And so I'm not trying to punish people that don't cheat. What I am trying to do is make everyone learn. So the quizzes are meant to replace homework, and you will have plenty of practice problems to work with in order to prepare for those. Why quizzes? Because there have been studies that show that when two groups of people are taught the same material and one is given a homework assignment and one is given a quiz, the group that is given a quiz actually remembers the material for longer than the group that had homework. And so I am using this to keep you up to date on the material and actually make some of the materials stick for longer, okay? You're gonna have 20 minutes to complete the quizzes. Normally in class they're about 10 minutes, but I know that there's issues with the technology, with inserting equations and things like that, and so I wanna make sure you have enough time. So 20 minutes is allotted for the quizzes, but you'll probably need about 10 minutes for each quiz. Each quiz is gonna be worth 10% of the quiz grade, because there's gonna be 12. You get to drop 2 lowest scores. So there's 10 quizzes in total. Quizzes overall are worth 20% of your grade. A lot of people complain because they say, I'm a bad test taker, all of this stuff. If you need accommodations, please let me know. If you have gotten accommodations to the Disability Resource Center, please reach out to me. I do get notified of that, but just to make sure that we're all set up and everything, please feel free to reach out to me about that. But it's not about tests, right? So these are not mini tests. They're homework in a constrained amount of time. So if you do the practice problems, if you watch the videos, if you do the reading, you will be more than prepared for the quizzes, okay? And on average, over the last couple of years that I've taught this course, the quiz averages have been about 85%. So people really don't struggle with the quizzes. And by the end of the semester, the surveys tell me that they really appreciate them and are glad that they did them, even though they were a little apprehensive at the beginning of the semester. I don't expect you to constantly study for quizzes. Again, if you just keep up on the material and make sure you don't get behind or get too confused without reaching out, you will be fine, okay? So just make sure you do that. And Piazza is a resource that should be taken advantage of, especially in this online format. Make sure you're asking questions. Students can respond quicker than I can, and you can get help immediately any time of day, okay? Are there opportunities for extra credit? Yes. So I'm a big fan of extra credit. As a student, I was a big fan of extra credit, and I still am today. So I want to make sure you have opportunities for that, but it's earned and not just some summary you write about some talk you went to. So extra credit is given for answers on Piazza. So if you answer someone's question on Piazza and I endorse it, which is something that I can do as an instructor, I can endorse the answer, you will get extra credit. Okay, you can get up to 5 points on the next exam. Points do not roll over from exam to exam. I have several expectations. One is that you keep up with the material, you work hard, and you ask questions. These are all sort of intertwined, okay? I have very, very high expectations. Anyone that has taken this class will tell you that it's difficult. It's not difficult just because I like to make it difficult. It's difficult because the material is difficult, and I expect you to rise to the occasion, okay? I have no doubt that if you keep up with the material, you work hard, and you ask questions, you will do well in this class. Okay, so if you have any questions about the logistics for the class, please ask them on Piazza. The instructions for signing up for Piazza are on the syllabus. So please go ahead and do that. If you have any questions or you can't for some reason sign up for Piazza, please email me. After the first 2 weeks, I will not respond to student emails. I will only respond on Piazza. It just makes it easier for me to keep all class-related things in one place. On to the actual course content. This course is an introduction to machine learning. What is machine learning? Machine learning is an algorithm that aims to improve performance on a task given experience. All of these have to be specified. If we talk about performance, it's completely different in two different domains, right? So if you're talking about machine translation versus object detection, in machine translation, you might have someone trying to translate something from English to Spanish. If you miss a word, but you kind of get the meaning across, then maybe that's okay, right? But in object detection, if you're working with an autonomous vehicle and you miss a pedestrian, that's kind of a big deal. So there's not a lot of room for error in object detection, but in machine translation there is. So performance looks different in those two tasks, right? You're trying for meaning versus precision in these two tasks. The task is, what is important for learning? What are we trying to do? What do we want the model to be able to do when we're done, right? Machine translation, object detection. Experience is what information does the algorithm have access to? So what can the algorithm learn from? In machine translation, you might have a bunch of parallel texts, right? So that might be a bunch of text in English and a bunch of text in Spanish where one is a translated version of the other. And then you give that to the machine and it's supposed to learn the pattern, right? And for object detection, you might just have a bunch of images where somebody has gone through and labeled all of the objects, okay? So the experience looks different for every problem as well. And then machine learning is used in everything, basically. So machine translation is something that I just talked about, right? Google Translate is amazing, works very well. Object detection is something that's becoming more and more important as we move towards more autonomous vehicles. Face recognition is something that you're probably familiar with using your phones. Attribute recognition is another thing that you're probably familiar with from all the different social media apps, right? Any sort of filter that's applied to your face using Instagram or Snapchat uses this sort of attribute recognition. So the idea is that it can recognize different things about your face and then adjust them. Spam detection is something that we don't even really think about anymore because it works so well. I get very few emails asking me to take $3 million from some bank in some country I've never heard of, and that's because of machine learning based spam detection. So that's why it works really well in Gmail and Hotmail. For some reason, everything seems to still get through. It gives you custom predictions, right? So if you're buying a bunch of things to rob a bank with, it might suggest that you also buy a face mask. It's used for more serious things like suicide prevention. So you can actually take brain scans and identify people who are either thinking about committing suicide or have attempted suicide before. And so you can use it for more mental health resources. You can use it to recognize autism at an earlier age using videos and quick questionnaires. And this is really important because the earlier you detect these kinds of things, the earlier that you can get interventions and resources for them. And that's really important. There's a lot of limitations, even though it's amazing and it's everywhere. It's very limited. I'm sure you're familiar with some of the mistakes that it makes based on just you using your phone. This one's funny because there's an emergency. You say, call an ambulance, right? Call me an ambulance. And it says, okay, from now on, I'll call you an ambulance, as if you had said Sarah, right? Call me Sarah. All right, I'll call you Sarah from now on. No, I need an ambulance. So kind of a major issue. Some more systemic issues are going to be racial issues. So there's a lot of computer vision systems that are built on data that is collected by white people of white people. And so a lot of times it makes, inappropriate suggestions and choices because it just hasn't seen data that's representative of the world. Translation is awesome. And machine translation works really well on romantic languages. So translating from English to French or English to Spanish or Spanish to French works really well. English to Mandarin, English to Japanese, not so great. So there's a lot of hilarious fails in machine translation. This is my favorite video. I show it every year, even though it's getting pretty old. But basically, there's a lot of limitations, and I think a lot of times this happens because the people that are working on it get a little bit overconfident, much like this robot, and then things go terribly wrong. So here's an example of something that's actually really dangerous, right? It's a machine translation fail. This is supposed to say this item is not for climbing, and it says this item is only for climbing. So if someone were to go rock climbing with this, they could fall and really hurt themselves or even die. And then a couple years ago, there was this deadly crash with a self-driving Uber, where the car actually recognized the pedestrian, but thought it wasn't a problem, and so ran right into her, and she died. So these are some serious issues, and they're important to keep in mind as we go through the semester. And if you go into a career in AI or machine learning, it's important to keep these things in mind, and we'll continue to talk about them more and more throughout the semester. So this course is going to touch on essential machine learning models and algorithms. You're going to learn the difference between models and algorithms. And given some set of data, you're going to be able to choose the best model or algorithm for that data. There's going to be a little bit of theory, a little bit of implementation. The undergraduate course will focus on what's being used in industry, and for graduate students, we'll focus kind of on what's being done in the research community. So what are we going to learn? Machine learning has 3 pillars: unsupervised learning, supervised learning, and reinforcement learning. A learning problem has features and labels. So the features are basically just the data that's been given to you, and the labels are for the task that you're trying to solve, right? So if you have object detection, the features is going to be the images, right? And the labels are going to be the objects that are in the image. In unsupervised learning, there either are no labels or you just don't have access to them, okay? So you have features, like here we have 2 features, x1 and x2. And so you can actually plot this data and visualize it in 2D. And so what you want to do in unsupervised learning is provide some structure to the data without knowing exactly what you're trying to do, okay? So we don't know what the problem is that we're trying to solve, but we can kind of see that there's 4 distinct clusters. So it probably makes sense that we cluster this data into 4 distinct clusters, and we say, okay, there's 4 classes here. For instance, right? We're going to learn a couple of different examples of unsupervised learning in this class. Supervised learning is going to be the main focus of the class, with classification being the most discussed in the class. Classification and regression are the 2 main types of supervised learning. Classification is trying to take an example and put it into a category. So if I say here I have 10 digits and I give you a picture of a number and I say, what digit is this? You would put it into one of the 10 categories, right, from 0 to 9. And so classification is trying to basically distinguish between multiple categories. And regression, on the other hand, is trying to fit a function to some data. And the point of that is to predict a real value. So if you think about gas prices as one problem that you might be trying to predict, so if you have a bunch of data for a whole week of gas prices and you want to be able to predict the gas price tomorrow, that's going to be a real value. You're not going to put it into some sort of category, right? So that's going to be more of a regression problem. And we will talk about regression, but it's not the focus of this course. Reinforcement learning is the 3rd pillar of machine learning. And this is fundamentally different than supervised and unsupervised learning because there is an agent that interacts with an environment. The agent and the environment change because of this interaction. So you can think about it in terms of a baby trying to learn to do anything, right? So the baby interacts with the world changes, right? So your view of the world changes and you get rewards, whether positive or negative, from your interaction with the environment, and you're trying to learn from those. So if you think about trying to learn to walk, a baby might stand up and get positive feedback because they stood up. So parents might go, oh my gosh, yay, so exciting. And then if you fall down, it's sort of a negative reward because you hit your butt and it probably hurts. So that's the idea of reinforcement learning. It's typically used in a robotic learning framework. And we will learn about this in this class, but an entire course would be needed to dedicate to this topic, which we're not going to do. So what are we going to learn? We're going to learn unsupervised learning, supervised learning, and reinforcement learning. In unsupervised learning, we're going to do some clustering and some dimensionality reduction. Supervised learning, we're going to do classification and regression. And reinforcement learning, we're going to talk about imitation learning as well. And then we're also going to talk about how we can combine unsupervised learning and supervised learning in a semi-supervised framework. So machine learning is just a fancy term for statistics. And as more and more people get involved, it becomes artificial intelligence. And so machine learning is really just a subset of AI. And all we're doing is really using statistical methods to solve problems. So it's just a fancy term for statistics, basically. So today we talked about learning and how it's trying to improve a performance on a task-given experience. We talked about machine learning being models and algorithms. And we talked about the different types of machine learning that we're going to talk about in this class, which are unsupervised, semi-supervised, supervised, and reinforcement learning. The next topic is going to be math for machine learning. That's what the quiz is going to be on Wednesday, so please go review that video.